Okay, so we are live. I think I did that right. I think
You did it
everybody has
exactly right. Yes.
cool. Okay. All
Yeah.
right. So for tonight, again, I'm flying by the seat of my pants because that's how I do it. And I was talking to a couple friends, and I thought, well, why don't we talk about the mental stress that writers go through, and maybe ways to combat that, because it is a solitary position a lot of times. Unlike Carl and Donna, who live together and can yell at each other down the hall.
Or
No, the house
in
too long
person
for
if the
that.
mood strikes. Yes.
Right. You know, all we get to do is throw things at the empty room, and nobody's here to hear it.
Ooh.
But
All right, Rich.
Yeah.
yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I just can't sit still, so that's kind of what it is.
Yeah.
So
That's cool.
Jody McPhee put that together for me, and I couldn't be happier. Like, he was like, "Let me throw something together," and I was like, "Oh, okay, all right, whatever. I don't really know what to tell you to put together." And that boy came up with an awesome thing. So it's like I got that. I got the outro that I'll try to do tonight, and I'm still learning all the buttons and all the fun stuff. And again, another part of being a writer.
Yep.
You have to learn stuff you thought you'd never have to do ever.
Well, yeah, that's the new writer, the modern internet.
We don't get to be Hemingway.
Well, who wants to be Hemingway?
I know, right? But then again, he did get to live in the tropics.
Yeah, we could still
there are
do that.
elements of it that I'm like, I would like to hide away on a damn island too. That would be great.
Yeah, but what if that's what made his book so boring?
Maybe. I know, because I think the same thing. I'm like, Hemingway? Really?
Yeah.
They weren't so boring at the time.
Right.
Right.
Yeah,
Writing
we
has
talked about
changed.
that before, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. When he was working, his style was it could be considered accessible by a larger number of people. He wasn't trying to be an authority on anything and use vocabulary that would be knocking the reader out of the flow of the story. Everything was on their level.
Yeah.
Sort of like what was it when the church started, instead of using Latin, using the native tongue of the people they were the location of the church in the vernacular.
Yeah. Gee, it's easier to reach people that way? I don't know.
Hey, if I don't have to reach for a dictionary every 30 seconds, you're
Yeah.
the story keeps flowing.
Yeah. Talk about Hemingway. You were talking about mental issues with writers. I mean, Hemingway leaned heavily on the bottle, and when he got bored, he got involved in a war somewhere. So I mean, that's not
maybe not go that far. I'm just saying, like, maybe.
And then he
Really.
himself.
it wasn't a healthy lifestyle in some respects, and you could see the stress the guy had.
Right.
And a lot of writers today.
Some of us make it look really easy. We pop on camera. We're like, "Hey, the world is fantastic." I got 1,000 words written, and I write 1,500 words on average every day, and life is wonderful, and I make billions from my writing. Okay, good for you. We don't. Like, so where do you go, except Tidbits and Scribbles, to find writers that we're damn good at our job, but we don't have the marketing crew behind us to make us multi-million-dollar sellers? Because trust me, my product is no worse than Danielle Steele or any of these others. In fact,
having read some of that stuff, yours is better.
Right. And that's the thing, is like, it took me a long time to say to myself, let alone other people, that my writing is good enough to be with the top dogs. And I don't back down now when I say that, because I was told with all of this backstory, with searching my heritage, a lot of my heritage is Native American. And one of the elders that I was talking to said, "How dare you downplay your heritage? Because you have so many ancestors that have come before you and have fought blood, sweat, and tears to get you where you are."
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, you know what? That's absolutely right.
Mm-hmm.
Because we came from nothing and look where I'm at. Like,
Right.
so I have to take that moment to go, you know what? I am good enough. I am good enough to play in the big leagues.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't have a marketing firm behind me pushing my books.
Mhm.
Now, one day I may hit that success overnight, you know, but I might not. That's okay. It might happen like Hemingway. I might get famous after I'm dead.
It can happen that way. We hope not, but
Definitely. It'd be nice to get famous in time to enjoy it yourself. But
Yeah.
Right. But then again, if my kids benefit from it,
Right, Rich.
I'm okay with that.
Mhm.
Yeah. And some of us do most of that.
Well, yeah,
Caffeine,
Rich,
booze,
we're not
whatever.
allowed to talk about PK Dick.
But yes, sometimes it can be very, very lonely. Because here you are stuck with, I hate to say it this way, but stuck with the voices in your head, and you're writing a story that
Mhm.
nobody knows about. Like, you just come out and say at the dinner table, well, I wrote 100 words today, and people at the dinner table are like, wow, how much money did you bring in today? You know, oh, well, none, because
Mm.
you know, I just wrote.
Because
I
it's
didn't.
not finished yet.
Right,
You don't get paid till
because
you're
it's not
finished.
finished, because I've not marketed, because I spent all day writing instead of marketing. I didn't bring in any money. Or you could have spent all day marketing and you still didn't bring in any money that day. Now it's coming, because any marketing that you'll ever find will tell you it comes in waves, and it goes directly proportionate to how much you put out there.
Mhm.
Well,
Yeah.
okay, but some days we can't do that.
Mhm.
One of our friends was really bummed at SilCon because she was placed between two folks that were doing craft type stuff.
Mm-hmm.
They were selling hand over fist, and she was not doing so well.
Yeah.
And Brian was there, and Brian pointed out to her, well, you've got 2 books, which is great. Okay.
Mhm.
But sometimes things don't pick up on the sales until you have 3 books. For
Or
some
more.
reason, when people walk by your table and you've got 1 book or 2 books, they're going, you know. So that's why those older books I wrote like 20 years ago or 10 years ago, I'll put those on the table too, because it makes it look like, oh, look, you know, he's got 4 books out right now. I've got more than that. But I don't want to overwhelm them. I'm not even trying to sell those older books.
Right.
But it's table dressing.
There's set dressing is what I was going to say.
It can be called set dressing, table dressing. In retail, it's called shelving. Like, it's just how you shelve the product. The product has to be displayed properly, or even at Walmart, people aren't going to buy it.
Right. Yeah.
And the reason set dressing came to my mind is it's one of the things that I tell the new writers at Apelian is one of the basics of what they're trying to do. You've got setting for the story, which is the world building, and you've got the set, which is the actual place where the action is taking place, where the story is taking place. Then you get set dressing, which is all the little stuff you just kind of scatter around. It's no more complicated than put a lamp here and a phaser there and whatever,
Right.
you know.
You have to set the scene so that your reader knows, okay, this
Yeah.
is where we're at.
And that's the way I think is how when you're at a table in a con and you're trying to sell your stuff, you're putting your set dressing out there to attract the attention of the passersby, and you've got a great way of just standing up and making yourself someone they want to come and talk to. I
And
mean,
I
it's
don't make it about my books, so might not be about my product. I might not sell one, but I'm going to talk to them and they're going to remember me. And a lot of these cons that I do are at local malls. And the next time I'm there, because I'll be there again, they're going to see me and go, oh, I remember you.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if they bought my book or not. They remembered me. Because I can't become a household name if no one knows who I am.
Right. Exactly.
But yeah, Rich is right. 1 can be a fluke, 2 can be coincidence, but 3 shows gumption.
Yeah.
It absolutely does.
It does. It shows you're in there for the
let's
long
see.
run. And like Aunt Donna, who has like 8 books.
11.
11. Do you have all 11 on the table? Yeah. Okay. So yeah, you know she's in this for the long haul.
Yeah.
Another 15, you can compete with Stephanie.
Yeah.
That woman can write fast.
Well, and even people like Donna who have that many out, like Carl, I'm guessing here, Donna, you're not interested in selling the backstock so much as you're interested in the newest book that you wrote or the newest book that came out because you're excited about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
the way my books are.
And I point out that Woodstock Dreams, for me, not for some of the other writers in it, but for me was such a fun book to write.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Or I love telling the story about the one little old lady who bought Seduction of Lily Monroe.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I mean, or pointing out that on my last Hunter's Ridge, that the silhouette of the woman holding the baby is my great niece and great nephew.
Yeah.
People find that fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they don't buy the book that time, but
Right,
sometimes they circle back.
Mm-hmm.
We were talking about the mental health of while you're writing, but also while you're at these booths trying to sell books. You don't sell a single book at your first convention. You're like depressed. You're feeling like, oh, why am I doing this? What am I doing? You know?
Yeah.
So a lot of times when we're at these things and I know somebody's new, you know, I will go over and pick up a book, you know, especially, you know, if I know them, you know, and we've picked up books from authors that we're like, okay, we're not interested in that genre, but we'll buy one anyway because we don't want them to leave with no sales.
Right.
I don't want them depressed and, you know.
And that goes back to that whole marketing thing of it's a mindset. So because you're an author, you know what it means to sell a book or to buy a book from an author. Because I posed the question one time, I said, so why does the hobo on the street get your $10 or your $20 that I've seen people hand them? Because he's holding a sign that says hungry. Me too, motherfucker.
Well, you need a sign. We'll write.
Hungry.
We'll write for food.
Yeah.
Like, I'll give you a book for your money, even. But you won't give me that money for my book because you don't see it the same way. Which I get because I am more apt to help out a family in need than I am to buy a product. It's a different mindset. Now, when you're buying a shirt from Walmart, are you really helping a family? No, probably not. In one way, yes. In the grand scheme of things, sure. Like you could say, well, yeah, you gave the person that works at Walmart a job. You gave the cashier a job. You know, okay, yes, the trickle down effect. But when you are buying a book directly from an author, that money goes right there. Like it's ours. We have it. I'm not giving it to anyone else other than my cover designer and my editors and but for the most part, it stays with the author.
Well, and you say people give to the hobo for nothing. Now you make me feel bad because I made the disabled vet that I gave money to sing for me.
Well, that's different. That was a whole different thing.
Well, his name was Elvis, and you know he did sound like Elvis when he sang, and he sang me the whole song.
There you go.
Give that man some money. He did some work for you. That's good.
Yeah.
And I don't care if he went right down the street to that liquor store that was half a block away with that money. He earned it.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and that's the thing. Like some people don't look at a book as that writer earned that. They spent, time away from their family earning that, and they just don't see it that way. They see it as, I'm not going to read that book. I don't want that book. Okay, well, I want some lunch money. So hungry, we'll work for food. Like, come on now.
Yeah.
Another thing that ties into what Carl said was rejection slips when you first start sending stuff to publishers. you get so depressed because they didn't go, oh, this is fantastic. That means
Right.
one of two things.
Mm-hmm.
It's either not the market that they sell to,
Mm-hmm.
or you've still got something to learn.
Yes. Yes.
Could
There's still
be.
improvement to be made. And I'm honest to God, I have 4 books out that are my own. I have a 5 and 6 are co-authored.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's multiple ones that I have ghosted, and there are lots that I have edited. So I have gotten lots of different work under my belt to improve my craft.
Mhm.
Because every day I'm improving. This new Vela that I'm throwing episodes up on. Episodes aren't even as big as a chapter. And I have to make that episode good from start to finish so that when people
Mhm.
first read it, they're intrigued. They read the whole thing and they want the next one. I've never had to do that within less than a chapter.
Mhm.
So now I can take an entire chapter and make that happen.
Mm-hmm. It does keep you on your toes.
It does. Because
Yes, it
had I not
does.
joined it, I wouldn't have had to practice.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that would help me is because I was, if I were to go on Vela, I've always been interested in the old time movie serials, like my mom and dad used to go and spend a dime at the movie theater to see. 15 minutes, maybe, if
Yeah.
that long, and an entire with a cliffhanger at the end. Have to have a cliffhanger to make them come back and give you another dime the next week.
Right.
Oh.
Yeah. Radar men from the moon. Yes. It's one of those things. Yeah, you when you get into that mindset,
Mm-hmm.
I won't say that it's easier to write cliffhangers in places that you didn't think you needed cliffhangers when you had the whole chapter, but now you've got this block and this block and this block have to have cliffhangers at the end of them. So you've got mid-chapter cliffhangers.
Oh, heck yeah.
So
Yeah.
that kind of thing. I mean, Flash Gordon, Buck Rogers, all the old Buster Crab serials, all the there's even stuff that's older than that, but um, that will be not a lesson book for plotting how to get a sufficient amount of story and a cliffhanger, but it's more of not this is how it's done, but this is how they used to do it. Now let's see how you can do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be a life or death
No.
cliffhanger.
Yeah, really.
I've written things that I was like, okay, you write to this point. It's like, what is that guy doing? Why is he doing that? What's going on? And what's his next move going to be? Oh, hey, tell you what, we're going to talk about something else for a while. Wait a minute. And then the next chapter will be something totally different. And then we'll come back to that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it keeps you reading because you're like, well, oh, okay, now it makes sense. I
Yeah.
see why he's going back there. And
Yeah. Once they get the whole package,
Mhm.
everything blends together into one continuous story.
Yeah.
But if they're just getting the little pieces,
Mhm.
the trick is keep them interested in piece by piece by piece.
Yes, Rich. That's what I was going to say. Is this is how it can be done, not the way it has to be.
Right.
Yes,
There's
exactly.
too many in the romance book genre is the one I know because I've met a lot of those writers at conventions and such. Those are the most notorious people for telling you, this is the way I did it. This is the way I became successful, and you must do it this way. Excuse me, no. With the caveat, there are things that you need to do. Like you need to have your book edited by someone besides your mom. Because your mom thinks everything you write is amazing. So there with the caveat that like it doesn't have to be exactly the way they did it. I promise you can make money other ways than they did it.
Yeah.
Or in a out of order step.
Mhm.
Everybody's journey is different.
Oh, yeah.
You can take their advice and then file it away as advice, not the rules. That doesn't go in the rules file.
Right.
That's how I fell into the habit of writing part 2 or part 4 first. And by the time I'm finished with that, the characters have told me how they got there,
Yeah.
or how they got here from there. Excuse me.
Mhm.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I know so much more about them. So I'll go back and write prequels.
Yeah.
And,
Well, and
and,
that's what
and
I
that can-
thought. I thought Vela would not be for me because Secret started out as a scene in the middle of the freaking book, and I wrote the scene before it, and a scene after it, and then one before it, one after it, or I jumbled up the middle and I changed things around. And so I was like, how am I going to write a serialized story and make it make sense? Well, they're already out there. So now I
Yeah.
can't deviate too much from the path that I was on. But I got lucky because I already had my book ready. And instead of going with, okay, I'm going to make this a paperback, I thought, let me try Vela. This is already ready. I could make it a paperback, or I could try this new program and see if it works. And if it works, I can run with this. Now, I don't know if that's how other authors are doing Vela, or if they're just throwing the words up and hoping that it sticks. I don't know.
Probably a variety of different methods, and it's just you have to see what works and what makes you feel good. Talking about mental health again,
Yeah.
If it would be too much stress for you to write the first piece and stick it up there, and then okay, now I'll write the second piece.
Yeah.
I mean, that could be very stressful for some writers.
It
So
can. And the only deadline
what you're doing is better, I think.
Yeah, I
because
think
you've
so
already written
too.
the whole thing, and
Right.
you're piecing it out, and you're just now going, okay, now where do I split it to make each
Yes. Yes, that's all I'm
chapter,
doing.
episode exciting?
Right.
You're not changing your whole
No,
way
I'm
of
just
writing.
changing. And that's the thing too. It, like I said, it makes me a better writer because I look at it and go, I could have made that sentence better.
There you
Because I'm only analyzing anywhere between 500 words and 5,000 are your episodes.
Mhm.
So for me, that could be a whole chapter in a book. But a lot of times it's not. A lot of times it's a segment of a chapter. So I'm looking at it like it is the whole chapter or it is the whole book.
These folks that write these huge books, okay, I mean that go on and on.
800 pages.
I've got to think.
800 pages. I know, folks. That's the outline.
I know.
Yeah.
But you think if they had something like they were working through a process like on Vela, okay, that would make them probably write a smaller and more cogent book in the long run.
Yeah.
Because it would force them to look at each piece as opposed to I'm writing this opus and it's going to be big and it's going to be, but you spent 5 chapters world building, and now I'm only now invested in your character after I've read the 6th chapter.
Yeah.
If I read that far. Okay.
I was going to say, yeah, because they have to buy each episode. So are they even invested anymore?
Not if you're not doing it right. You got
Right. If it got boring and you got a sloppy middle.
You can have a fantastic opening and a fantastic conclusion, but if the stuff in the middle is not up to par, they're not going to get to the end.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. You're going to lose them.
Yeah. If you go too much that way, though, you end up like me, who writes a novella, because I cut out all the extraneous junk, and it's just the exciting bits. And it's like, okay, maybe that was too short.
I've actually got one like that. It was something I wrote. It was meant to be serialized in an online magazine, and by the time I was finished with it, I look back, I read it all the way through, and I go, "You left out every other chapter." It's like it went to a scene break, and then something else started, and you're going, "Didn't you have something planned for in between there?" I go,
No, I didn't.
"Yeah, but it was dull."
Yeah.
It was dull, so I didn't write it. I mean,
yeah. But yes, Rich, I wanted to touch on this one. It's something Vela could make them go longer. That's kind of what I'm thinking with Scars, is that it started out as this just off idea, because normally I write historical paranormal romance. This is not paranormal at all. It's modern Western romance. So then I got to thinking, well, she's got brothers. Each one of the brothers has to have a story, right? And then you meet characters in every story that the readers are like, hey, what about this person? Don't they have a backstory? Well, sure. Let's throw them in there too.
Yeah.
So then
You wind up writing a James Michener novel.
is that a big one?
Yeah.
15,000 pages, 17 generations,
And
covers
in
500
reality,
years, and you
can
still
keep
can't
going.
put it down.
Yeah. And in reality, with Vela, the way it is set up, you could keep going, and it's a little bit. I haven't explored Patreon a lot, I will admit, but it's a little bit like Patreon in the fact that the reader can make suggestions, or you can set up a poll. And like, if they adopted a kitty in chapter 1, what do we name the kitty in chapter 2? You know, and your readers can pick, and so then they kind of feel like they're in that as well.
Investment.
Yeah, and then at the very end, you can put a writer's note or author's note about your thoughts on this chapter or this episode. And it's kind of neat. It kind of gives the reader a little bit more insight to the writing, a little bit more insight to the author. And the hope is, okay, you've read my stuff on Vela, jump over to my Amazon page and read my other stuff.
Now, yeah, and in that way, you treat it exactly like I treat being at a convention. I'm not exactly there to sell books. I'm there to sell my name.
Yes. Yeah. Because then they're going to, after that convention, when everything's calmed down and their brain is calmed down a little bit, they can go, okay, I have all these authors that I want to look at, and I've got their card, so I'm going to go back through and look.
Yeah, this guy was interesting. Let's see what he writes. Okay, here's a taste.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. He actually writes better than he talks. Yeah, well, in my case, that would be a high hurdle to jump. But
no, we all write better, and like, I always feel like I'm the author, I'm the writer. When something comes up like a birthday or an anniversary, I should be the one with the flowy words and make people cry with my, happy tears, with all these fun words that I can write. And then I fall flat on my face, like every single time. Like, somebody's got a birthday or something, and I'm like, I really want to make this special for them. What can I write? What are words? Like, I can't even come up with the word. Really?
The dreaded blank page.
Yeah, like, I can't even do a birthday card.
Well, what you need to do is like do it another time and save the file.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. When I'm in that mode, I should just write it out and here's my file.
That's why Lindsay makes me pick out all the cards for everybody's birthdays and anniversaries and stuff. She goes, you just walk by the shelf and go, oh, that's the one.
Yeah.
And I'm going, honey, I did read it. I mean, I looked at 2 or 3. This was the one that would mean more to them. It's like, it's targeting, basically. You're targeting the person the card is for. But she'll do the same thing in a clothing store. She'll go, I'm looking for a pair of pants in this color, in this style. Could you help me? And I walk around and I look and I go, oh, here you go. That's what you want.
Yeah.
And she goes, damn you. It's too expensive. I go, buy it anyway.
Right.
It's what you want.
It's what you wanted.
Yeah.
Yeah. And my husband's favorite line is, you get what you pay for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is one of the cases where if the shoe fits is not an insult.
Right.
This is true.
Yep.
You were talking about mental health.
I shall return.
Okay.
Talking about mental health of writers, I have a writing friend who's posted on her Instagram, and I'm not going to give her name or anything, but she was posting, look at us. Kudos to us who are trying to fit in to look like the normal people, and we're doing it. We're. I'm like, no, you're not. You're not close to normal. But why would you want to be exactly normal?
Well, and that's the caveat, I think, is like, we didn't want to be normal when we started this journey. Not everybody says, I want to be a writer. Not everybody says, I want to sit in an office in front of a computer and write my book that is eating at me, that I need to write.
Yeah. If that
Most
was
people
normal,
don't write.
if that
you
was
know.
normal, everybody would have a book.
Right.
You know.
And not everybody does. And if they say, oh, I'm going to write a book when I retire, or I'm going to write a book one day,
Yeah,
well, put pen to paper, get it done, because I got it done.
Yeah, and Carl and I both have met people who, I want to be a writer.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's see what you've done. Well, I haven't written anything yet. Okay, you need to write so you can be a writer.
Yeah, yeah.
Myself, I'm kind of like Dorothy Parker. I hate writing but love having written.
Okay.
I don't think I ever had the conscious thought that I wanted to be a writer, but I had to.
Okay.
Yeah. I had to put stuff down.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think for me it was therapy, because of what I lived in and what my life was like. That was okay, it's dark, it's late at night, everybody else has gone to bed. The world has calmed the fuck down. Like, I can focus now. And if my world was really shitty that day, whatever it was I wrote, I could escape into. This was my world. This was where I escaped. And so then that's why I hid it away too, is because it came from a time in my life where I was like, no. That's too dark. It's too risque. No. But then as I got older, it was like, well, that's not that bad. Like, I could publish that.
Yeah.
Let me get Carl to air check my reasoning here. I've got something that I have been saying for years, that writing is a form of mental illness induced voluntarily by the victim.
Oh, I'll go with that. Yeah.
In order to not only escape from the trials and tribulations of everyday life, but to attempt to gain some sort of recognition that is emotionally positive from people you've never and may never meet.
Yeah.
In the form of the finest form of prose poetry ever invented, pay to the order of.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will agree with that. As a counselor, I've had plenty of people who heard voices in their heads, but they've never done anything with them. Okay, like Donna says, she'll hear the voice telling her, "Oh, this is what my character would say." She writes it down. Later, she turns it into a book and sells it. That is a productive thing to do with that. If you hear voices and you don't write down the things, if you don't learn anything from the process, then that's not healthy. I mean, so you've got to. It is a form of mental illness, but you're using it in a positive way.
Yeah, I was going to say a constructive way, but yeah, definitely.
I've also found there are two types of persons that come in, like looking for therapy or looking for answers or needing help. There's those that just want the sympathy. Okay. So you say, "Oh, poor baby, it's okay. You'll be all right," and there are those who actually want help getting somewhere.
Yeah.
Okay. And hopefully that's our audience here that says, okay, I'm working on something. I'm having problems with it. What can I do? And we'll look for the help and ask for the help and get it. But there are people who just want that's too bad. We feel for you. We give you the Facebook hug, whatever,
Right.
And that's all they want. And it's telling those people apart that's so hard.
Holy crap, look at this. Joe's actually working on books too. Look, we rubbed off on Joe.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry, Joe.
Yeah.
We rubbed off on Joe.
Yeah. Well, that's good.
I wouldn't put it quite that way. But
we encouraged him.
We're growing.
Yes. Like moss. Which is the north side? I forget.
Oh, I've got the writing bug.
Yeah.
Hey,
Okay.
no, and that was the big thing about mine. Voluntarily undertaken. It's like my wife has complained. Well, no, she has complimented my OCD for not letting water droplets stay in the bathroom sink after I'm it's always nice and dry and clean and everything else. And she goes, "How did you do that?" And I go, I like it that way, so I made myself start cleaning up after myself.
There you go.
Yeah.
Voluntarily. It was not
Yeah.
some compulsive thing from my childhood. It was me as an adult go, I like this much better when there's not a mess right here. So I'll clean that up. And then you wind up then you wind up running a paper towel around the sink in the department store restroom because you can't stand it.
Yeah.
That's me.
Well, that applies to writing as well because, I know people who have forms of OCD and they will write and write and write and write and never think about doing anything with it. Okay. And they're not here right now, but, one night, they just appear someplace talking to a writer like us. Okay. And maybe it's in a green room somewhere, maybe, and pretty soon we've got them on the floor saying, "You're going to get a novel done and you're going to get it out by December, babe." And this is
And
it.
they're going, no, please don't make me be creative for money.
Exactly. that lady does have a book out now. So, sometimes you need that push and sometimes you need to be pushed to the floor and forced to finish.
Well, and
And
then
sometimes it takes whips and chains.
The we could call it editing portion. You could say because it's not edited yet. It's not good enough yet. I'm still writing it and it's not good enough yet. But what they're really saying is I'm not good enough yet.
Or I'm scared somebody won't like it.
There you go.
And the somebody is somebody that means something. Because that's why Secret sat in a drawer for 20 years. Nobody will ever want to read that. I wrote it because that's what I like. Nobody likes what I like. That's the biggest kind of shit you'll ever tell yourself.
That's a reason I started writing steampunk because, hey, it was fun. It was great. It was Jules Verne and H.G. Wells all rolled into one right here, and it's coming straight out of my head. It was fun to write. And briefly, it was a popular genre for sales. May not be anymore, but that doesn't mean I'm not going to try and stop selling the damn thing.
Right. Well, and that's one thing I wanted to touch on tonight was that as fun as this is, there are times where as a writer, you're like, man, I'm stupid. I can't write. Nothing is coming together. I know how this should go and it's not going. I don't know what to do. So I'm going to sit here and I'm going to pound out words more and I'm going to really try and make it better and like fantastic. And I'm not leaving this chair until it happens. And then you get into that, okay, I didn't do anything yesterday. Everything I wrote yesterday was crap. I'm going to write some good stuff today. And the next day is very like yesterday and like yesterday and like yesterday.
It can be.
And then you get into that rut of, wow, I really didn't get anything written. Or they've written stuff, but they've deleted it as they went because it's not good enough. And now they're in this rut of everything they write is horrible. And it's like at that moment, step back.
Yeah.
It's if you write on a laptop, if you write on paper, if you write on a desktop, step away from whatever it is and go do something else completely different.
Yeah.
Like for me, my outlets are outside. Like now wintertime hits, I can't do a lot of outside stuff.
Right.
So I'll go draw. I'll go watch a movie. I'll go, sit with my kids and chat with my teenagers because they're ding dongs most of the time. But it's something completely different than writing. I'm not looking at my screen. I'm not writing. I don't care what it's about. It will not revolve around writing. And then I can come back and I feel like I've got all these fresh ideas.
Oh, yeah. You'll run into times when, you want the story to go someplace and the characters disagree
Yeah.
Yeah.
and they stop talking to you. This happened
Or
to me
you
twice
or
so
you
far in the
write the
last few
wrong
years.
name. Because
Yeah.
I was playing with one of my stories. I think it was Warrior's Honor, and the lead character had the wrong name. And I was telling Linda, I said, I'm not loving this story. I don't really care. I mean, it's okay. It's good writing. I just don't care. And she said, okay, what's wrong with the story? And I said, well, nothing. You know, we have point A to point B, and we're getting things done, and things are happening. And she said, okay, what is it? And I said, I don't know. It took me leaving that story alone for an entire weekend, coming back to it and saying, she's got the wrong first name.
Okay.
So I changed her first name, and the story works, and I love it again. Nothing else changed. Her first name.
Yeah, for me, it was trying to follow a formula, trying to make it fit into a particular style, which was not my style.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, the characters stopped talking to me, the words dried up, and I'm going, hey, I turned out 3,000 words yesterday. How come I've only got 5 today?
Yeah, because your brain needs that mental break. That, okay, look, no
Yeah.
more writing. No, we do something else. Paint,
And
draw, you know, rake
the
the
thing-
leaves in the yard, something.
the thing I learned was don't try and force it to be something else. Let it be what it is.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah,
let the
Joe, if I find that time machine, I'll let you know.
let the story develop. Let the characters tell you what's going on. Just take dictation.
Yeah.
I mean,
And you can
uh,
always edit it later. You can always add it, flesh
Yeah.
it out. You can edit. You can, but you got to get the ideas down.
yeah.
I'd like to go back to Rich saying that maybe Where the Where might not fit because it was nonfiction. I don't know.
I don't think that matters.
I
don't
I
think
don't
that
think
matters.
either. Bella is just right.
Yeah, as long as you have that little kind of cliffhanger at the end of the episode.
Well, and you
Which
don't
would-
even have to have that. The
No.
only reason that you need that is so that your readers come back. That's why. It's not like it's not a requirement, but it is. I don't want to say it's a requirement. You can write in Vela however you want to write.
Yeah,
But it is
exactly.
suggested and a very great idea to put the cliffhanger in there.
But in nonfiction, I don't think you need that.
I'm looking though.
I'm wondering if it wouldn't be worth a try because
Right, that's what I'm thinking. Like, why couldn't you try it?
it's like I tell people about any kind of writing and especially about a book. You are going to spend a lot of time writing a book, but you're done with it at the end, and you've got it. I mean, so
it doesn't cost you to be on Vela, right?
No, not a thing. In fact,
so I would go ahead and give it a try.
For nonfiction, it might be as simple as
they have a whole category.
Everything I've got on this.
Okay.
Next time we'll go here.
Yeah.
So, if they've got a category for it, then
they've got all kinds. Yep. Okay, so that solved that problem.
Yeah.
We answered the question.
So now we've got to push Rich to do it, right?
Yep.
Well,
yeah.
Already
well,
doing
and Joe Bachman's working on 2 apparently.
Yeah.
Yeah, Tales from the Job Site published, and now this book. So he's got 2.
Yeah, you do lose the forest because you've been staring at individual trees and ponds. Yeah, that where people get stuck in and then they can't write anymore, and they're like, I don't know where to go with this because you have to back up and say, okay, where was I going with this when I first started this project?
Right, or have somebody look at it and say, hey,
sure.
It doesn't have to be done for someone to look at it and give you a critique and say, okay, well, you were on the right track, and then somewhere in chapter 7 you went whoop.
Yeah, and I don't know if Rich has an editor right now.
I know a girl.
He could find somebody.
Mm-hmm.
one of the best things I have ever written. I had like 10 or 12 people reading over my shoulder every time I finished some of it and put it up and go, okay, I know they're typos. I can find those. You can help me find those, but does the plot hang together? Now,
Mhm.
I'm going to keep going from here. You tell me how I can improve up to this point, and you don't see anything after this point until I've written it.
Yeah.
And it was like, good Lord, I've never received so much positive feedback in my life. And some of it was, oh, I wish you hadn't have done that. That
Mhm.
ruins it. And some of
Yeah.
it was, wow, that's innovative. Nobody's ever tried that before. You think
Mhm.
it'll work? And I'm going, don't know, don't care. It's
Right.
it's in there.
Yeah.
I can correct the typos, and I can punch it up a little bit, make the language a little bit more flowing.
Mhm.
But as far as the action part of it, that was exactly what I meant to do,
Mhm.
and it didn't lose the readers. And
Right.
these are other writers, and they
Mhm.
they know exactly what it is I'm working on, and they know exactly the background stuff that I'm working from. So, because they're writing in the same shared universe that I am,
Mhm.
so it worked out really well.
Bye, Rich.
And
Okay, Rich. See you later. Thanks for coming by.
the upshot of it was that when my wife and I were having our long distance telephone romance, and she decided that it was time for her to get on the bus and ride
Mhm.
out here to meet me, I sent her a copy, a printout,
Mhm.
and she said by the time she had reached chapter 3, she had forgotten that I was the one that wrote it
Wrote it.
Mhm.
Good.
and was
Good to
just
know.
into the story.
Good.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what you
So
want.
all that help really did do some
Yeah.
good.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
the people that I was working with helped me turn out a much better story. And actually, there were some editorial decisions where I had proposed something, and the editor said, "No, that's going to complicate things a little bit too much. You're going to lose a reader here. You're this you need to shorten this, and you need to cut that out entirely, because that's really going to blow their minds. They're going to drop them right out of the story. So don't put that in there."
Right.
And there were other places where it's just,
Well,
hey,
and
think of a better way to say that.
yes, and that's what I was going to say with being a writer, especially if you're a new kid at this. Doesn't matter your age, but if you're new at this, just write.
Mhm.
Your editor, like Dan said, your editor is going to be the one to come to you and go, okay, this doesn't fit, or let's reword this.
Mhm.
Hmm.
So it doesn't have to be perfect. It's not supposed to be perfect when you give it to your editor, because that's what they're called. They're called an editor.
Mhm.
They're supposed to do that. They're supposed to find that stuff.
Mhm.
Now, if you've given it to a copy editor, that's different. And we've talked
Yeah,
about that
that.
on other shows.
Mhm.
But a good
Hmm.
developmental editor will find the developmental parts of your book that work or they don't work. So
Yeah.
don't worry about it being perfect. Just write it.
Yeah,
Write it
really.
well enough that you think you've got your good story there. There might be some parts you got to take out. There might be some parts you got to add. Get it to your editor.
Mhm.
But yeah,
You've
don't
got
think it's going to be perfect when it goes there.
you've
Yeah.
got to have a beginning, a middle, and an end.
Mhm.
And your editor is there to make sure that it flows from
Yep.
one
It
part to
all
the
goes together.
next,
Mhm.
Yeah.
and you don't wind up blowing smoke and
Yeah.
Too much.
Yeah.
losing people, losing
Perfection.
readers.
Perfectionism can be a mental illness in
Mm-hmm.
some respects because it will keep you down
Oh
from
yeah.
many things in life. If you're a perfectionist, everything I put out has to be perfect and everybody has to like it.
Yes.
No, that's
It doesn't work that way. No,
Right.
no.
Because trust me, you're going to get bad reviews. You're going to get and they may not even come like as on a review on Amazon. You're going to get some author, or it doesn't even have to be an author. The one I'm thinking of that I got the worst one from was a book reviewer. That's what she did. She read books and she reviewed books. My books were not her favorite genre, but she said she would read them. I didn't get a bad review necessarily on the book. She reamed me for being a new author and thinking I could go somewhere. I'm like, well, I didn't ask you to review me. I asked you to
really.
read the book.
Right.
But note taken. I will not send you any more stuff, nor will I send you my friends.
Right. Exactly.
So be careful for that. They should be reviewing your book, not your credentials, not your backstory, the book.
If you're a reviewer, you should not know anything at all about whoever wrote it. Your interest is it a good story? Does it keep my interest? Is it worth other people spending their money on? That's it. That's it. You can't say, oh, he's a Republican, I'm not going to read any more of this. No, or whatever,
Well,
Democrat, Scientologist, whatever, you know. If you got something that's going to keep you from objectively evaluating the story as a story, not the writer as a person, then you're in the wrong business.
Right.
Exactly.
And even if you've done a good job, okay, there are going to be people that don't like it. Okay, for one reason or another, you know, and maybe it picks on their particular what we used to call sacred cow, you know, or you know, it
It triggers something within them,
People said they loved the Mad Gasser cheerleader, but they don't like the end. And I'm like, well, that happens. You know, sometimes not always the good wins out.
What you expect. Yeah.
Sometimes the bad guy gets away. But it made me write the sequel.
Yeah.
So it was like, okay, I'll make those people happy. I'll write a sequel. And then in the sequel, something does happen to the bad guy. So it made those readers happy, you know, and it moved the story along. It made me go, okay, well, maybe I should do something else here. But even then, you know, there are going to be people who don't like the ending of that either. So, you
Grant liked it.
Oh, thank you.
But Linda had that too. She has a book that she thought was a one and done. But her fans were like, you left the villain off too easy. That was not good, you know. And she was like, well, I guess I could write a second story, and in the second story we could do in the villain, you know. So in the second story, she specifically asked, does the villain come to a good end? And her beta readers were like, yes, you nailed it. Got it.
Yep. Now,
but then again, there's another book. So more revenue, you would think, hopefully.
Yeah.
I've got one where the villain does get his comeuppance in the end, but by the time you get there, you find out this was not a one and done villain. He had some run-ins with the heroes before. So now I've got to go back and write the prequel, which is I've got this horrible habit of doing that. But it helps me develop the characters and turn them. It gives them some growth. It turns them into interesting people.
Well, why not call it a prequel? Just focus on that one character. Like, say you've got 4 characters. Focus on that one character's backstory, and it's just part of the series.
I don't work that way, but I can see the value of it. And if it were not me, then definitely.
But no, if that's not the way you write, then no, that doesn't work.
Yeah, the way I do it is
it's all in one.
The story happens, and while the story's happening, I learn what went on before the story happened, and I'm going, you know, that might be a good story in itself. Let me write that one.
Yeah.
And I hate to think of what I'm going to wind up knowing about them when I get through writing the prequels and go, oh, wait, when they were in high school.
Yes.
I
had a writing friend who recently said, I'm going to write a book, but it's going to be in first person. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh no. Okay. I recently got to see a part of their work, and it actually is pretty good.
Okay.
I'm thinking, okay, maybe this is going to work for you because that is her personality. She could do it, and okay, it read pretty well. But when I first heard about her idea, I'm going to write something in the first person. I'm thinking, why are you doing that? Just to be different? Because everybody who tries really different, wild stuff doesn't always work out for them very well.
No, it doesn't. And
I wind up writing a lot of stuff first person because that's the easiest way for me to get into the character, and I want the reader to care about that character.
Yeah.
And it's a whole lot. It's more insistent. I, me, mine. I did this.
Sure.
You're right there in the lead character's head. You get to hear what they're thinking when they're not talking.
Mm-hmm.
And you get to see what they're doing when there's not supposed to be anybody there to watch them do it.
And
it's not like they're on the Truman Show, Right. There's no cameras everywhere.
Right.
But
you can do it. It's possible, and I've seen it done very well.
Yeah.
But you have to have skills to do it, and I don't suggest it for your first book.
I have friends that will not read my work because a lot of it is first person.
First person. Well, and then there's some that they won't read it if it's third person, and they won't read it if it's like
omniscient editor or omniscient narrator.
Yes.
Omniscient editor.
I've even had one lady.
I've had a couple of those.
She's actually my friend on Facebook, and I've talked to her a few times. For her, she can't read Times New Roman.
Oh.
She has an eye disease that she can't read Times New Roman. And she told me, she said, is it a hard and fast rule that you have to print a book in Times New Roman? And I said, no, absolutely not. It's a standard. So when you go from publisher to publisher, that's the standard. Now, I, as a independent, I can print it in anything I want to print it in.
Really?
I just never knew that there was an eye degeneration disease that if you had the book in a different print, it was easier to read. Because it doesn't make it harder for the rest of us to read it. It just makes it easier for people like her to read it. And I thought, well, that's really weird.
And that's a good thing. I think some ebook readers allow you to change the font.
Yes, and resize it.
Yeah. Which helps a lot.
Yep. Yeah. Industry standard for manuscript submissions back when people were sending paper manuscripts.
Yeah.
It used to be Courier. Not Courier New, but Courier.
Yeah.
And you had a lot of other little hoops you had to jump through as well. Some publishers wanted single space, some wanted double space, some of them wanted 2 spaces after a period or at the end of a sentence, and some didn't. Some wanted paragraph indents, and some didn't.
Oh, heck yeah. Some required 5 pages, some required 50. Some required an agent, some didn't. Yeah, it was a nightmare. When I first looked at putting Secret out, was way back when I was still a kid. And I still lived with my parents. They were still together at the time. And I first started learning about you've got to get an agent. The agent has to get with the publisher. Like, it was a nightmare. And I was like, I'll never, ever be able to do this. And then lo and behold, 20 years later, I'm like, I have a book.
Exactly.
Yeah. So anyway, we're past the hour point.
Just barely.
Yeah. And Donna's getting tired, and I get up early, so.
All right.
Yes. I've got to go to work in the morning.
I'm going to try and do my outro thing, so bear with me here.
Okay.
Let's see if we can do this. Oh, let's see here. That was the intro. I did it. I did all the buttons right.
And we're still alive.
We're still alive.
Yay!
So, We will say bye. Thanks for coming.
Bye.
See
And
ya.
always remember, folks, no matter who they are, writers are crazy.
Yeah, we're nuts.
Yeah.
A little bit.
But we enjoy it.